Hello, I'm El Director. This is El Director Vision, and you are watching Indie Rebel Hollywood effects without the Hollywood budget. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to show you what we're going to do today. Let's make this full screen. And we have this shot. It's rather unremarkable. I just shot this with an iPhone 11 Pro. And you can see we're in the middle of a downtown area of a big city. We got birds flying through the air and stuff like that. Cars driving by, whipping by. And I mean, if you look, like we're there. We're in the middle of the city. We've got power lines coming in front of stuff and all these crazy things over here. No, just kidding. We are doing visual effects. That is what this channel is all about. If I make this like this is what the shot actually looked like originally in downtown Kalispell. We don't have big cities. We actually have a limit here in the city that you can't have a building higher than 3 stories. So if you wanted a big city look and vibe and feel to your shot, and this is about the best you're going to get to it. So we have to rely on visual effects to fill in the background, put the city back there, and that kind of a thing. So let's take a look at how we did this. Visual effects is all about problem solving, and you guys have heard me say that before, and we've got a lot of problems. We've got the trees, we've got the power lines, we've got these little light doohickeys over here, and that kind of a deal, and yet we're going to solve the problems. We're going to make this all happen. And let's just take a look at how we do it. So starting over from scratch, we will bring in our plate. This is the plate. Very nice. And let's jump right into the Fusion page. First thing I want to do is go and delete my media out node. You guys know I don't like working with that. And let's go ahead and make this to viewer 1. I like working with 1 viewer. You can have your 2 viewers if you want. But coming from Nuke, I like having 1 to work with. Keeps all my attention in one spot. So first thing we need to do is we need to bring in our city element. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the media pool and bring in my city. All right, close the media pool, get that out of the way. We've got our city, we've got our background. In fact, we can come through and rename these if we wanted to. Let's see, F2, I'm gonna call this one the plate. And then F2 again on this one, we're gonna call this one the city. Very original, I know. And we want to go ahead and put this on top of the background, but first we need to make this thing large enough, because if I just drop this on right now, we'll just take a really quick look. We can see real quick if I apply my an overlay mode or something like that just right now, just so I can see both of them. The scale on that looks good, but the problem is that the shot moves and it pans around. So I need to basically, if you came from After Effects, we would reptile the shot. We don't have a reptile function in here, but we can go ahead and make our own. So let's see how we might do that. First thing I want to do is create a new background node. And this new background, we're going to give a obscenely large size. Let's go and turn off auto resolution. We'll make it like 3,000 pixels wide and 2,000 pixels tall. And we're going to go and merge our city on top of that. Let's take a look. I think we need to go even wider with the background. Let's go and make the background like 4,000. There we go. Looking a lot better. Next thing we want to do is add a transform node. Run the city into the transform. Merge that transform on top of the previous merge. Take a look at that. Looking good. Go back up to the transform node. Flip it. And we're just going to move it out of the way. We're going to create our own reptile function here. So let's go and just zoom in a little bit. And move it right until that seam disappears. Nope, got a little bit of a seam left. Move it back. There, seamless, perfect. Let's go and take a look at the other end. And we're gonna add another transform node. Run the city into it. Merge it on top. View that final merge. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. Take the transform node, flip the shot, and pull it all the way over to here. Again, making sure that we get that seamless as much as possible. Nope, not quite. Go back into it. Almost there. There. That looks pretty seamless like that. So if we go ahead and zoom on out, we can see we've reptiled the city essentially in just a matter of seconds or minutes, depending on how quick you're fast forwarding through the tutorial. All right, let's go and throw all this into an underlay node right here. And we'll go ahead and just scale this up a bit. Make sure everything stays locked in the way we want it to. Very nice, very nice. And we'll take the underlay. We'll make it, just so we can keep track of it. Yeah, gray's a good color for the city. Why not? It's kind of a tan color, but we can work with that. Move that up and out of the way. Now we need to track the shot. If we go ahead and just throw this on top of the shot, and we take a look at it, and we flip the apply mode back over to something. Zoom back in. Actually, let's just go scale to fit. Yeah, the city's not moving. The background's moving, but the city's not moving. So how are we going to fix that? Well, we need to track it. And again, talking about problem solving in visual effects, when I first did this, I tried the point tracker, I tried planar tracking, nothing was working. So finally I broke down and did a 3D track. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do. Bring our plate down, and let's just go ahead and add the old camera tracker. There it is right there. And I'm just going to go ahead and use default settings on it. I am going to, though, preview the track location so I can see what it's intending to do here. And yeah, let's just auto track it, see what happens. I didn't change any of the settings. I didn't try to dial in my sensor size or anything like that. Next, I'm going to go over to solve and hit solve. And check this out. Using the built-in settings, not changing a thing, just a couple of seconds, I have a solve error of 0.3268 pixels. That should be plenty good enough for what I'm looking to do. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead, and with this, we're going to export a 3D scene, and let's go ahead and export it. Where is it? There it is. We're going to move it down off to the side over here, and I'm going to get rid of the ground plane. I don't need the ground plane in it. Oops, too many. There it is, just like that. So we've got a point cloud, we have a virtual camera, a merge 3D, and a render node. This is rendering our 3D scene. So if we jump into the 3D scene, we can see what it did here. Let's zoom out, rotate around, and it did a decent job. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it'll do what we need it to do. So let's go ahead and pivot over to a top view here and zoom out a little bit more. And we can see that all of our points are kind of right here on the same surface plane, right about here. And that's where I'm going to stick the background. So let's add an image plane 3D node, run that into the shot, run the background into that, and let's go ahead and scale this bad boy up just so we can see what we're doing. And we can go ahead and move it back into the frame a little bit. We can scale it even quite a bit larger. Let's make it like 25. And let's make it 50. 50 should work. 50 I think is good. Okay, so we have our image plane 3D, and I'm just lining it up right here at the end of this point cloud, just trying to get it close. That's all we're trying to do is get it close. I might want to come through and do a rotation on it. Let's see, X, Y, yep. Pivot the Y rotation a little, pull it back that way, and let's go ahead and now merge this on top of our shot. So I'm going to move my camera tracker out of the way. We don't need it right now. Grab the output of the render node, merge it on top, get rid of the camera tracker from there. It should go into the camera tracker that way, and let's go and view that render node. All right, go ahead and flip our apply mode back over to something like multiply, just so we can see how it's all tracked into the shot. And let's go ahead and play it and see what we got. Now, here inside of Resolve, I've only got 24 gigs of RAM, by the way, and I've got a 6 gig video card. So my playback is not the best, and I get a lot of these dropped frame areas. So what I'm actually going to do is jump over to the edit page and let it cache itself up right here. And once this is done, I'll be able to play it back just perfectly. So we're just going to sit here and let it kind of render itself out. You can see it's moving fairly quick. Why is it rendering quick? Well, because there's nothing here. We forgot to connect that media out node. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Come to our last node, add a media out. There it is. We're just going to drag this off to the side and jump back to the edit page. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. And real quick, I can see that's tracked in just beautifully. I'm really only concerned about the line where they overlap right about here, where I've got the buildings in the sky, and then I've got the original buildings that are in the shot. And that's tracked in pretty dang good. So bounce back into Fusion, and let's just go ahead and improve upon this and make it a little bit better. First thing I want to do is go ahead and scale up the buildings a little bit, or at least reposition them in the shot. So I'm going to select that image plane that the city is plugged into. And again, staying organized, I like straight lines, so we don't like this diagonal junk that's going on. Let's do that. Okay, that one's fine down there. Good. Select the city, and we're just going to go ahead and move it up in the shot until they are lined up about where they need to be. And what I'm looking at too is I can see I've got this yellow, orange fall leaf colors. I don't like those, so I want to make sure that those stay. Oops. Want to make sure that those stay buried just below my skyline. Something about like that. And then let's go to the beginning of the shot. Let's go move this back over just a smidge, maybe right about there. Go to the end of the shot. Almost perfect. I got a little bit more sticking up here, so let's see if we can scale this up a little bit more. Let's go 60. 60 works, 60 is good. And then I need to fix my orientation here a little bit. Let's go ahead and rotate this side to side until we get our city standing about straight up and down. Something about like that. Very nice. Cool. So let's go ahead and fix our mats here. We need to go and mat this thing out. And again, playing with stuff as I like to do. Clean up our node graph just a little bit. There we are. Playing with it, and again, doing problem solving, what we need to do is figure out how the heck we're going to get rid of the sky, but still keep all of our details. Well, if you notice, we did, on this merge node right here, we multiplied the shot on top. So this allows us, if we go and zoom in close, we've got all of our details. We've got the power lines, we've got fine details here, we got the trees, right? We've got all these fine details that we've been able to keep. What we need to do now is mat out the rest of it, just like we did in that sky replacement tutorial a few months back. So scale that back to fit. And let's come back to the beginning here. And we're just going to add a Luma keyer. We're actually going to use the Luma keyer. Fusion does come with one. I'm going to run my background plate into the Luma keyer. Let's go and take a look at it. Oh, it's looking so hideous, but that's okay. And I'm going to run the Luma keyer output into the mask input of my merge, where the city is merged into the shot. And now we can start to see this is maybe going to work. If we come back into our Luma keyer and we start crunching this down a little bit, hey, check it out. We're getting details coming back into the shot. Something about like that. Crunch it down more. And you can see the more I crunch it, the more haste out it begins to get. So again, we're just walking a fine line here. Trying to figure out how far I can take it to keep the city, something about like that. So now we've got the city in the shot, and we've got our foreground masking it, but we've got more problems. We've got all these nasty white halos. So what I want to do is actually come down here and blur this mask out a little bit. And then we will go ahead and contract it down, maybe expand it, yep. And just ever so slightly, maybe increase the blur. And we're just going to walk this back and forth until we get something that looks halfway decent here. All right, coming back here so I can view it full screen. And that's not too bad. Let's go and let this cache out and we'll take another look at it. All right, watch it full screen. All right, that's not looking too bad at all. Yeah, I think that'll work for our purposes. We need to fix some matting. We've got some stuff showing through, kind of all over the place here. We go back, take a look. Got the cars, got some stuff going on back here, but all this is very, very, very easy to fix. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to clean that up a little bit more. Jump back into Fusion, and let's just go ahead and add a really quick garbage mask. And we'll go to frame 1 here. I'm going to add my polyline mask. And I want to run it into my Luma keyer to mask this out. And I'll show you what's going to happen here. So let's go and take the mask. I'm going to run it through. Select a bunch of stuff like this. Do. All right. And all the way down, across the buildings, down, over, and up. Short, sweet, easy. If I just drag it into the effect mask, that doesn't quite work. It's not doing what I wanted it to do. That's because it went into the effect mask. So what I want to do is actually drag it into the garbage mat. Hey, there we go. Now it's bringing everything back. In fact, if I go to my Luma keyer, and you can see the alpha channel now, if I flip it just to this, you can see we've masked that out just beautifully. And what I want to do now is go to the polyline, and we're just going to soften that edge a bit. Maybe about like that. Increase the border. So it does blur up a little bit into the shot. That's okay. Go back to our RGB values and take a look at the final. And we're going to come back in and tweak the soft edge a little bit now. And you can see we've created basically some haze. Hazing out the city a little bit, something about like that. That looks nice. And it blends that line all the way up into it. And we can also now come back, go back to the polyline, and we need to animate it. So I want to come to the center, and we'll go and set a keyframe here for that. And we're going to go ahead and jump to the end of the shot. We're going to go and move the polyline around, line it back up in here with the trees. Go and expand some of this back out, making sure we're blocking everything that we want to be blocking. Keeping that down below, something right about there. And then we'll come into the middle and we'll fix up our keyframes here now too. About like that. And we're just going to go through and check our keyframes, make sure they're all lined up. Okay, those are looking pretty good right about here. Jump into the end. I can move a little bit faster that way. All right. And that should be all we need. It's just a really quick and dirty, simple way of garbage matting out the shot in the city. And what we can do now is come up here and let's do some more color correction on the city, really start blending this all together. So let's come up to the city right after this final merge. We're going to add a color corrector. Doop. And now we can use this to start really dialing in the shot. So if I make this full screen, or at least scaled to fit, I can come in and start playing with my saturation. I can either pull saturation out, we can add saturation to it, and just try to match. Keeping in mind it is the background, it shouldn't be nearly as rich as the foreground, but something like that I think looks quite nice, just like that. And finally, let's go ahead and add some birds to really give this shot some life. So to add our birds, we're going to use Blender. It's just what I'm familiar with. And I've actually got an asset online. If you head over to the link in the description, you can go to blendswap.com and download this very same bird file that I'm using right here. If I go and pull up my widget for it, you can see that I've got these birds that I can move around the screen. And if I just play through, we've got flapping wings, and they're nothing fancy. I made these a couple of years ago, actually, for a project I was working on. And I got inspired to make these after watching a video by a man named Sean Kennedy. And he is a visual effects artist working in Hollywood, and he has used Blender birds on numerous high-profile Hollywood films that I guarantee you've probably seen. And he used Blender to make the birds. Now, he applied them to a particle system. The version that I supply does not have a particle system. However, another user on BlendSwap has gone ahead and made a particle system. His name is Mag Design, M-A-G Design. And he made a particle system for the birds. You can download that and just use that if you want. Or, even better, so you can learn from the master himself, head on over to the description box where I've got a link to Sean Kennedy's video showing how to make birds, how to apply them to a real particle system, and all that good stuff. However, just for my purposes right now, because we're trying to get this done as quickly as possible, let's just go ahead and we'll just add them straight up into the shot. So I'm going to add a Shift-A, add a camera, and I'm just going to use them with the way I designed them. It's worked fine. We used them in a high-profile documentary, and they worked out great. I like to come down with the camera selected, go to the camera options, go to viewport display, and we want to show the limits just so I can see where the camera is pointed. And yeah, that should be just fine. Okay. I'm now going to use my bird controller object. We're going to scale it down super, super small into the shot, something about like this. Position it where we want it to be. Make sure we're back at the first frame. I set a keyframe for the location. Jump forward to the end. We'll just maybe do 150 frames. In fact, let's go and set it right now, 150. And bounces forward all the way to the end of where we want it. Add another location keyframe. And then we're going to go into our animation editor with our keyframe selected, right click, keyframe type, and actually handle to, where's interpolation mode? There we are. Set that to linear. And that's going to make sure that just, if we look at the birds here, that they move smoothly throughout the shot. Go ahead and render it out, and we'll bring that back into Fusion. So we're going to jump back into Resolve. Here we are. Bring up our media pool. I've already got my birds. We're just going to go and quickly drop them into the frame. These are just going to be some simple blackbirds too. Let's add an image plane for them. Merge them into the scene. And let's go and just take a look at our scene. And we can see where these birds are being added to. We'll go ahead and scale the image plane up, just so we can see a little bit more of kind of what's going on here. All right. So I want to put my birds not quite into the background level, but not all the way into the foreground. So I'm going to, just looking at my dots here, whoops. I'm going to position the bird plane somewhere, let's see, if I'm more top down like that, somewhere right around here in the middle of it. Let's go ahead and rotate them, make them all line up. Something about like that. And let's take a look at our scale here too. Go back to our final shot. Let's make them super big. Make them 50. There's my birds. Found the birds. All right, so let's go ahead and scale them down a little bit. We don't want them quite that big. Somewhere right around here. And we're going to use just our tools to kind of position them where we want them to be. Birds like to fly high, something about like that. And that, and we'll scale them down a little bit more. We're just really looking for a little bit of motion in the frame of their fluttering wings. I'll position them right about here. And where are we at the end? There they are over here. That should look pretty good. And let's go ahead and color correct them so we can make them match a little bit better. Select the image plane. Actually, let's go and select our birds and add our color corrector there. We'll color correct them before the image plane. And I may want to play with my contrast or gamma. Let's lighten them up a little bit. Something about like that. I think that works out actually quite nice. The other thing we could do is we could blur them a little bit if we wanted to. So I'm going to come up here, add a blur. And that just softens them. It's a blur of about 1 pixel. And that looks actually really, really nice. I think that's going to be about perfect. Let's make sure everything else in the shot is looking good here. Jump back to the edit page, let this cache up, and we'll view it full frame and see what we got. Now that we're done, make it full screen, and let's take a look. I can see my starting is right about here, so we want to keep that in mind so I can watch this on loop. And that's not bad. There's a lot more stuff we could do to this. We could make a lot of crazy things happen with it. Let's come back up to here. Yeah, that's looking really, really, really good. I actually really like how this has turned out. For a speed composite, this is, not bad. We worked on this now for, less than 20 minutes, and we've gotten to this point, which is just great. And that's the beauty about compositing and speed compositing in particular. I now have a shot that I could go, here in Resolve, go back into my main edit page and go start working on other shots and come back later and start refining this a little bit more. There's a little bit more things we could do. If we really wanted to finish this off, I can come into my camera tracker, and I'm going to go into settings and make sure I have motion blur turned on. That's going to make sure that everything's moving the way it should in the frame. And the other thing I might want to go ahead and do is add some grain to help match our digital elements to the foreground shot. So if we zoom in here just a little bit like this, I can see I've got grain here on the foreground and there's no grain on the background. So let's add just a little bit of grain to this real quick. There's our grain. I'm going to add it here off to the side. Again, keeping track of things. Move that merge node over, something like that. That's a bit too much grain, so we'll just go and turn it down a little. Maybe increase the size. Something about like that. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think that looks out quite nice. And then you've got yourselves a final shot that we did in just a matter of minutes. And, just to recap kind of what we did here, let's go and zoom back out and we'll take a look at our scene. We've got, in fact, we separate these out a little bit more here. Let's throw these into their own underlay. Okay, we'll make that underlay orange. We've got our 3D scene as well. Let's go and take a look at that. Throw that and do an underlay. We're gonna make that one teal. And then this should actually be down here as part of the scene. Perfect. So, to recap, now that we got this all organized, we took our original plate shot here. We did a 3D camera track on it. You can see by our points. And we went ahead and took a shot of a city and we created our own version of Reptile just by using a couple transform nodes. And all that got thrown into the middle of our 3D track. That gave us this right here. And that then got merged on top of our background shot. And in order to, if we go ahead and pass through on this one, in order to make sure that we cut out our foreground mats, we used just a quick little Luma keyer that allowed us to create an alpha channel to merge everything back on top. And again, we're here now at about 95% of the way to a final shot at this point, and definitely does pass the squint factor. That is a real term, and if you want to learn more about visual effects, stay tuned. I have a video coming up called the top 5 tips you need to know for visual effects, squint factor being one of them. So with that said, go ahead and give this video a like, and leave a comment in the description below if you've got any questions. As always, I am ElDirector, this is ElDirector Vision, and you've been watching Indie Rebel Hollywood Effects without the Hollywood budget.